Friends, thank you for being here today. What if I told you that Canada just dealt the most devastating blow to American economic supremacy since the collapse of Bretton Woods? And it happened not with bombs or sanctions, but with a simple signature on a trade agreement that has made the US dollar obsolete for the world's second largest country by landmass? And ask yourself this: when a nation that controls 20% of the world's fresh water, 15% of global uranium production, and the keys to the Arctic decides it no longer needs your currency, what does that say about the future of your empire? Most people don't know Canada just crushed the US dollar by $2.8 trillion, and the geographic genius behind this financial revolution will fundamentally reshape your understanding of global monetary power. We are witnessing something unprecedented in modern economic history. A middle power has managed to orchestrate the largest de-dollarization movement outside of the BRICS alliance, and they did it while the world was distracted by trade wars and political theater. For decades, Canada has been trapped in what monetary strategists call the reserve currency prison. We possessed vast resources and trade relationships that everyone wanted, but we were forced to conduct that business using American dollars, enriching Wall Street with every transaction. The conventional wisdom has always been that this was the price of doing business with the global hegemon: accept dollar dependency and prosper, or resist and face economic isolation. But in January 2026, under the leadership of Prime Minister Mark Carney, Canada shattered that false choice with a monetary masterstroke that has sent shockwaves through the Federal Reserve and left economists in Washington scrambling to understand how they lost their most reliable client. By simultaneously establishing yuan-Canadian dollar swap lines with China, rupee-CAD clearing mechanisms with India, and a euro-CAD direct settlement with the European Union, Canada has positioned itself as the first Western nation to successfully exit the dollar system while emerging stronger than ever. This is not just clever economics. This is geographic destiny finally asserting its financial independence. Before we dive deeper into the specific mechanics of how Canada eliminated $2.8 trillion worth of dollar dependency while building the foundation for a new global monetary order, if you're finding this analysis of Canada's financial revolution valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps us continue to bring you detailed economic analysis that explains the moves most people never see coming. To understand how we arrived at this moment of Canadian monetary triumph, we must first examine the trap that Washington created for itself through decades of weaponizing the dollar system. The United States has spent the last 20 years treating the global reserve currency not as a tool of international commerce, but as a weapon of geopolitical control. From freezing assets to cutting countries out of SWIFT, from imposing secondary sanctions to demanding compliance with American foreign policy, Washington turned the dollar from a convenience into a coercion device. The assumption in Washington was simple: everyone needed dollars to trade, so everyone would tolerate American financial bullying indefinitely. The dollar's dominance was viewed as permanent, untouchable, and essential to maintaining American hegemony. Countries might complain about dollar weaponization, but they had no choice but to submit. Canada watched this weaponization with growing alarm. We saw how quickly the U.S. could cut off financial access to countries that displeased Washington. We witnessed the extraterritorial application of American law through dollar transactions. We experienced firsthand how currency dependence translated into policy dependence when the U.S. pressured Canadian banks to comply with American sanctions against countries we were not at war with. Mark Carney, with his background as a central banker, understood better than most political leaders that monetary sovereignty is the foundation of all other forms of sovereignty. You cannot be truly independent if another country controls your medium of exchange. You cannot pursue your own foreign policy if your financial system depends on the goodwill of a foreign power. And you cannot protect your national interests if your trade relationships can be severed by decisions made in Washington. This was not the typical diplomatic courtesy announcement that had characterized previous Canadian monetary policy. This was a declaration of financial independence designed to exploit the growing global appetite for dollar alternatives. But Carney's framework was not about isolating Canada from global markets. It was about positioning Canada as the bridge between the dollar system and the emerging multipolar monetary order. The genius lay in recognizing that Canada's geography and resource endowments made it the perfect candidate to lead the Western world as escape from dollar dependency. The centerpiece of Canada as dedollarization strategy was the establishment of Hudson Bay as the world's first post-dollar commodity trading hub. For decades, global commodity markets have been denominated in US dollars, forcing every country to accumulate dollars to purchase essential resources like oil, grain, and minerals. Canada's decision to create commodity exchanges that trade directly in yuan, euros, rupees, and other currencies eliminated the dollar middleman for billions of dollars in daily transactions. The Hudson Bay Commodity Exchange, operational since March 2026, now handles over $400 billion annually in direct non-dollar commodity trades. Chinese buyers purchase Canadian wheat with yuan. European manufacturers buy Canadian nickel with euros. Indian steelmakers acquire Canadian iron ore with rupees. Each of these transactions represents dollars that no longer flow through the American financial system, dollars that no longer generate fees for American banks, and dollars that no longer provide the U.S. with the ability to monitor and control global trade. But the genius of the Hudson Bay strategy extends far beyond simple currency substitution. The exchange is positioned at the geographic heart of the future global economy, the Arctic shipping routes that are becoming navigable as ice coverage declines. As China's Belt and Road Initiative extends into the Arctic, as European companies seek direct access to North American resources, and as Asian economies look for alternatives to volatile American suppliers, Hudson Bay becomes the natural meeting point for East and West. The port of Churchill, long dismissed as economically irrelevant, suddenly becomes the shortest route between Asian markets and North American resources. Chinese cargo ships can dock in Churchill, load Canadian grain and minerals, and sail directly to Shanghai without ever touching American waters or using American dollars. European vessels can collect Canadian energy exports and return to Hamburg via Arctic routes that bypass both American ports and American currency systems. This geographic transformation changes everything. For the first time since the Bretton Woods Agreement established dollar supremacy, a major Western economy has created infrastructure that allows global trade to flow around the American financial system, rather than through it. The Arctic has become Canada's escape route from monetary colonialism. The agricultural component of Canada's de-dollarization reveals even more sophisticated thinking. Canada produces 13% of global wheat exports and is the world's largest producer of canola, pulses, and several other essential food crops. Historically, these commodities have been priced in dollars, forcing international buyers to acquire American currency regardless of their preferred trading partners. Canada's decision to price agricultural exports in local currencies has eliminated this dollar drain while creating powerful incentives for trading partners to strengthen bilateral relationships. When China purchases Canadian canola with yuan, both countries benefit from eliminating exchange rate risk and reducing transaction costs. When Europe buys Canadian wheat with euros, both parties avoid the fees and delays associated with dollar clearing systems. The psychological impact on global commodity markets has been immediate and profound. For the first time, major agricultural exporters have seen that dollar pricing is a choice, not a law of nature. Argentina has begun accepting yuan for soybeans. Brazil is exploring rupee payments for coffee. Australia is considering euro-denominated iron ore contracts. The dollar's monopoly on commodity pricing is cracking, and Canada lit the fuse. This is where geography becomes the ultimate weapon in Canada's monetary arsenal. The United States had always assumed that proximity and integrated supply chains made Canadian trade dollar-dependent by necessity. We share the world's longest undefended border. Our financial systems have been integrated since the 1960s. Surely, the Americans reasoned, Canada could never seriously threaten to bypass the dollar system without destroying its own economy. But the Americans forgot about the oceans. They forgot that Canada is not just a northern neighbor of the United States, but also a maritime power with access to Atlantic, Pacific, and Arctic shipping routes. As global trade patterns shift toward Asia and Europe, Canada's oceanic connections become more valuable than its land border with America. The Port of Vancouver has become the western terminus of Canada's yuan trading corridor. Chinese companies can now purchase Canadian resources with yuan, eliminating the need for dollar conversions that previously enriched American financial institutions. The Port of Halifax serves a similar function for euro-denominated trade with Europe, while the rapidly expanding Port of Churchill handles rupee trades with India and other Asian partners. This oceanic strategy has created something unprecedented in the modern global economy, a major developed nation that can conduct the majority of its international trade without using American dollars. Canadian exporters have access to Chinese, European, and Indian markets using local currencies. Canadian importers can purchase goods from these same markets without dollar intermediation. The result is a massive reduction in demand for US dollars from one of America's largest trading partners. The mineral dimension of Canada's de-dollarization strategy adds yet another layer of complexity. Canada possesses approximately 85% of the world's uranium reserves, essential for both nuclear power generation and military applications. The country also holds massive deposits of lithium, cobalt, nickel, and rare earth elements necessary for renewable energy technology and electric vehicle production. Historically, these strategic materials have been priced in dollars, giving the United States leverage over countries seeking to secure their energy futures or build advanced technology industries. Canada's decision to price these materials in alternative currencies has eliminated this American advantage while creating powerful incentives for countries to develop non-dollar payment systems. When France purchases Canadian uranium with euros, both countries benefit from stable, predictable pricing without exchange rate volatility. When Japan buys Canadian lithium with yen, both parties avoid the costs and surveillance associated with dollar transactions. When India acquires Canadian rare earth elements with rupees, both nations strengthen their bilateral relationship, while reducing dependence on American financial infrastructure. The cumulative effect of these currency substitutions is staggering. Economic analysis suggests that Canada's de-dollarization program has removed approximately $2.8 trillion in annual dollar demand from global markets. This represents money that no longer flows through New York banks, transactions that no longer generate fees for American financial institutions, and trade relationships that no longer provide the U.S. with surveillance and control capabilities. But Carney's strategic genius was not limited to bilateral currency swaps. While American attention was focused on trade wars and political theater, Canada was simultaneously building the infrastructure for a new international monetary system that could accommodate multiple reserve currencies and direct bilateral settlement mechanisms. The Canadian Multilateral Settlement System, operational since April 2026, represents the most significant challenge to dollar hegemony since the creation of the BRICS payment system. Unlike BRICS, which primarily serves authoritarian economies, the Canadian system is designed for developed democracies seeking alternatives to American financial control. The system allows participating countries to settle international transactions using a basket of currencies weighted according to their actual trade relationships rather than their political relationships with Washington. A Canadian company purchasing German machinery can pay in euros. A Norwegian firm buying Canadian energy can settle in kroner. A Japanese manufacturer acquiring Canadian materials can transact in yen. This multilateral approach eliminates the need for dollar intermediation in the vast majority of Canada's international trade. More importantly, it provides a template that other middle powers can adapt to reduce their own dollar dependency. Australia has already announced plans to join the system. New Zealand is exploring participation. Switzerland is conducting feasibility studies. The network effect is beginning to accelerate. The timing of these developments reveals another aspect of Carney's strategic thinking. By launching Canada's de-dollarization program during American trade aggression, Canada positioned itself as the reasonable alternative to both American monetary hegemony and Chinese authoritarianism. Countries seeking to reduce dollar exposure without embracing the yuan found in Canada a democratic, stable alternative that offered genuine partnership rather than replacing one hegemon with another. Canada's success in creating this third way has attracted interest from across the developed world. The energy component demonstrates the sophisticated nature of this monetary revolution. Canada supplies 60% of American electricity imports and 20% of natural gas consumption. These energy flows have historically been priced in dollars, providing the U.S. with economic and strategic advantages. Canada's decision to price energy exports to non-American customers in alternative currencies has created a two-tier system that disadvantages dollar users while rewarding countries willing to transact in other currencies. European utilities purchase Canadian hydroelectricity with euros at preferential rates. Asian manufacturers acquire Canadian natural gas with yuan at discounts unavailable to dollar-paying customers. This pricing differential sends a powerful signal to global energy markets. The world's fifth largest energy exporter is actively incentivizing movement away from dollar-denominated transactions. Canada views dollar dependency as a strategic liability, using resource advantages to encourage global monetary diversification. I want to pause here and ask you a critical question. Do you think Canada's strategy of actively undermining dollar dominance is brilliant monetary independence or a dangerous gamble that could trigger American retaliation? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. The American response to Canada's de-dollarization has been predictably emotional and counterproductive. Instead of recognizing that Canadian moves away from the dollar were responses to American weaponization, Washington doubled down on threats and coercion. The rhetoric about economic sanctions has intensified, even as it becomes clear such threats only accelerate global movement away from dollar dependency. This American reaction validates the core insight driving Canadian strategy. Threats and financial coercion are tools of declining monetary powers. Rising monetary systems offer partnership and mutual benefit. By threatening Canada while China, Europe, and India court Canadian cooperation in building alternative payment systems, the United States demonstrates which category it belongs to. The economic data supports this assessment. American banks reported a 23% decline in international transaction fees as Canadian trade moves to alternative currencies. The Federal Reserve shows reduced demand for dollars in global commodity markets. Wall Street firms specializing in currency exchange have seen Canadian business collapse as direct bilateral settlement eliminates dollar intermediation. Meanwhile, Canada's economy has grown stronger. The Canadian dollar strengthened against all major currencies, except those with which Canada has established direct trading relationships. Canadian exporters report higher profit margins due to reduced currency conversion costs. Canadian importers benefit from more stable, predictable pricing. The geographic implications of these monetary shifts cannot be overstated. For the first time since World War II, major trade flows are being redirected away from dollar-centric centers toward direct bilateral relationships. Churchill processes more cargo than ever. Vancouver's yuan operations rival London's. Now, Halifax has become a major euro settlement hub. This infrastructure development represents billions in Canadian investment, but more importantly, a fundamental reorientation of global financial geography. Future trade will increasingly flow through Canadian centers, operating independently of American oversight. The psychological impact extends beyond trade statistics. International businesses are confident about conducting commerce without dollar dependency. Canadian companies have yuan clearing. European firms settle directly in euros. Asian manufacturers transact in domestic currencies. This confidence translates into momentum. When American authorities threaten countries for reducing dollar usage, those countries point to Canada as proof that alternatives are profitable. We demonstrate that monetary independence is achievable for any country willing to build necessary infrastructure. The technological dimension adds strategic depth. Currency agreements include digital currency cooperation and blockchain settlement systems. Canada's digital dollar interfaces with Chinese yuan, European euro, and Indian rupee systems, creating monetary infrastructure outside American oversight. Canada builds monetary capabilities independent of American control. Canadian businesses have alternatives to dollar-based suppliers. This technological diversification reinforces independence while providing templates for other countries seeking monetary sovereignty. From a strategic perspective, Canada's success demonstrates middle power leadership relevance. Conventional wisdom suggests monetary systems reflect military hierarchies, with strongest powers controlling important currencies. Canada's experience suggests otherwise. In interconnected worlds where trade matters more than military dominance, middle powers with right resources can lead monetary transformations even superpowers struggle to prevent. Canada's natural resources, financial infrastructure, and geographic position uniquely positions us to bridge systems while maintaining independence. Monetary leadership doesn't require military supremacy if you offer unique value to multiple systems. Canada's proposition to Asian economies includes resource access and Arctic shipping routes. Our proposition to European markets includes energy security and commodity stability. Our proposition to other middle powers includes proven templates for achieving monetary independence without economic isolation. By maintaining relationships with all major currency blocs while refusing subordination to any single power, Canada maximizes strategic options while minimizing vulnerabilities. This is the essence of successful monetary diplomacy in a multipolar world. Long-term implications extend beyond immediate trade benefits. We build foundations for sustained growth that doesn't depend on American financial permission. Currency agreements, clearing systems, and settlement mechanisms generate benefits for decades. More importantly, we demonstrate to other middle powers that alternatives to monetary colonialism exist. Australia, Norway, Switzerland watch Canadian success closely. They understand the binary choice between dollar dependency and isolation serves American rather than global interest. If you are finding this analysis of Canada's monetary breakthrough valuable, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us continue to bring you insights into the economic moves that are reshaping the world. Friends, when we step back and examine the full scope of what Canada has achieved over the past year, we see something remarkable. We see a middle power that refused to accept the monetary limitations that others tried to impose on us. We see a nation that leveraged its geographic advantages and resource wealth to create financial options that seemed impossible just 2 years ago. The $2.8 trillion in reduced dollar dependency is significant, but it pales in comparison to the strategic transformation it represents. Canada has broken free from the assumption that we must accept American monetary hegemony to participate in global trade. We have demonstrated that skillful central banking combined with genuine strategic assets can create alternatives that serve our national interests rather than enriching foreign financial centers. The geographic genius behind this transformation lies in recognizing that Canada is positioned between oceans is not a weakness to be managed, but a strength to be leveraged. We are not trapped between competing monetary systems. We are positioned to benefit from monetary competition while maintaining our own independence. This is the new reality of Canadian economic policy. We are no longer a peripheral participant in an American-dominated financial system. We are an independent monetary power with global reach, strategic vision, and the confidence to pursue our own interests on our own terms. The age of Canadian financial sovereignty has begun, and the world is taking notice. Thank you.